What's up, family? It's your boy, Minister Jamin here. Welcome to the Cross Perspectives podcast where faith meets real, relevant conversations. No filters, no fluff, just straight up dialogue. Of course, you know I'm here with the girl,
Naomi.
Minister Naomi. Let's get it right today. Let's get it right today. Look, we're
I
excited.
don't like titles.
But,
Hey, it's all good
It's
though.
so annoying.
it is, but it's proper.
Minister Naomi.
Well, would you prefer to be Sister Naomi?
I get that
I know you do.
a lot.
Sister Naomi. We'll be sister today.
Sister girl.
Sister girl.
Sister friend.
Look, we're excited because we got a good friend in the house. You guys know
Hi,
him
everybody.
in the city. Greg Rouse.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you for the invite. I'm glad to be here, with the two of you. Let's get it cracking.
Look, we're going to get it cracking. Look, we're going to change it up a little bit different today. We're going to start with our Kingdom Collab. Look, the Kingdom Collab section is just an opportunity for us to highlight some amazing people, designs, businesses, entrepreneurs around the city. So what better way is it today that we shout out Rouse Audio Designs, LLC.
I appreciate that, bro. Yeah.
If you could, Greg, tell us a little bit about your LLC, about what you do.
Actually, I do live sound. We do sound installation. We do audio, video. We do all the above. We can do the audio and the video for an event. I mean, we've done. If you go to the Ross Audio Designs on Facebook, you'll see we've done concerts and different events, nonprofits, and you know what I mean. Anything that can help out either a ministry or even doesn't have to be a ministry or non-ministry. We can we also go into your places, your building, your house of worship, or whatever it is. And one of the things I'll say specifically that we do is we don't believe in a cookie cutter design. We go in and we try to find out what your vision is, and whatever your vision is, we try to design it toward your vision. So everything is custom. Once again, it's not a cookie cutter thing. And we try to do, as we say, and shout out to my pastor, Pastor Alonzo Murphy. I'm going to use your phrase, brother. We try to help you ball on a budget. So, you know what I mean? It's not always about that big sticker price. You know what I mean? We want to make sure that you get what you need for the price in which you can pay. And sometimes, and I'll say this too, I'm sorry, I'm going on and on, but I'll say that one thing that we do like to do is actually even design out in stages and phases so that you don't have to bite that bullet all at one time. So
That's what's up. Look, if you got any AV needs, any projects coming up, shout out your boy. How can anyone get in contact with you? How could they inquire?
one of the easiest ways is to do it through either Facebook or to actually do it through the email, Ross Audio Designs, at gmail.com. And that's, what I mean, if they actually just send me an email, send me a message, what I mean, any type of inquiries, and then we can go from there.
Sounds good. So there you have it. Kingdom Collab today. Rouse Designs Audio. Rouse Audio Designs LLC in the building. You can get his contact information right below on the bottom right. So let's get into it. So one of the important things that we want to talk about today is just, this balance between sound and audio from a church standpoint versus a secular standpoint.
Wow.
So it's pretty awesome that, you kind of have, the best of both worlds. You do it, on both platforms. Obviously, we're a Christian podcast. So let's talk a little bit about, from your mindset, let's look at it from the church perspective. What could the AV culture in the church learn from kind of the culture in the secular world when it comes to AV?
One of the big differences that I see is on the secular world. In the secular world, first of all, everybody knows why they're there. When you're dealing with bands and you're dealing with professionals, and sometimes you're bringing in big name professionals, you're talking Grammy winners and so forth. Everybody knows why they're there. There's an assignment. There's a level of professionalism that has to be there because they understand that they don't make money, you know what I mean, if the show is bad. And they understand this, especially when you're dealing with bands and bands that are up and coming or bands that are professional. They realize one of the statements that I'll make is you're only as good as your last show. So they want to make sure that everything that they do is done in excellence. That's how they get paid. And the world, unlike the church, is not so forgiving. They say they were terrible. You know what I mean? Oh, I would never go see them again, so forth and so on. In the church, I'm just going to put it out there. Mediocrity is applauded. And sometimes below mediocrity is applauded. It's not the same level. First of all, they don't put the same level of work in. A lot of the musicians and a lot of the singers and things like that, they don't have the same work ethic. It's like, oh, it's just good enough. And it's funny to go from the world, which we should be the standard of excellence, being the church. As they say, do everything that you do is unto the Lord. That's not the perspective that I've seen. And the other thing too is like, even in the world, you have to know your job. Let's work with that. You have to be trained. What job do you know that you could show up to and not know how to do it and keep it? What job do you know that you could be late all the time? What job do you know that you're going to leave early and keep your job? That doesn't happen in the world. They will fire you.
I was actually going to say that I had to do some research today about AV and how it actually affects the worship setting. And what the big hot topic is, some people feel that it needs to continue to be more traditional and that the newer setups that we have with the dark lighting and the spotlights and all of the things, it's giving secular behavior. And what I've found is that there is, even though it was taken from the secular world with like concerts and those type of environments, there's actually an art behind light and sound when it comes to a worship setting. I found that interesting.
Well, actually, I'll even go a little further than that. There's actually a psychology behind it. Yes. And we're not talking about a lot of people call it theatrics. And I'm going to give a shout out, if I may. I'm going to give a shout out to my old pastor, Rick Paladin. One of the things is that he said is about decreasing distractions so that you can increase devotions. Mm-hmm. And one of the things is he actually preached a sermon one day, and I was kind of like wondering, why did they dim the lights in the sanctuary during worship? And because, I came from a traditional Methodist church, AME. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, we were about as dry as you get. We were literally I'm not going to say off of a particular group, but we were very dry. It was all hymnals. Yeah. And honestly, no offense to anybody who's a Baptist, you better not have brought a B3 in that church. It was pipe organ only. Yeah. Just saying. That's how traditional they were. And I ended up going to a church where they dim the lights. And first of all, the first time I really ever seen anybody use a guitar for worship, it was like, what is this? Mm-hmm. Well, he actually preached a sermon, and he said, and this was way before all of this stuff hit the light where they were talking about the theatrics. He actually said part of the reason why we dim the lights is he said, who here worships? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And, everybody wants to raise their hand. And he said, most people, when they are in front of other people and they feel that you can see them, they will not be open with their worship. Mm. And he said, when you dim the lights, it allows a person to have that intimacy themselves with God. Because they're now not looking at the fact that other people are looking at them. Yes. So they were more free and more open to worship. And I was like, wow, like that was different to me.
I actually seen that, and I was going to bring that up.
I'm sorry. I
but that's I didn't mean good to that you around. Said that because I was going to ask you, like, what differences do you notice between the settings? But, as far as for being open to worship and all this that you're saying, you find that more prominent in dimmer lighting. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it actually directs your focus. It keeps your focus on the stage.
And the thing is, what's going on up front instead of you worry about what's going on around you.
Yeah.
So it's, you know what I mean? How many people have ever gone to a concert and the spotlight goes on to whoever the lead singer is? So your focus goes to that person. And the thing is, you should enjoy, or you should actually be immersed in the worship, because this is the problem. And I'm sorry, I'm going to segue onto something,
Oh,
but
you
this
good.
Well,
but
this
this
is
is
free flowing.
We
Just,
free
just
flowing.
do you.
okay. Gotcha.
Cross
Okay.
perspectives. We're giving cross perspectives, opening the mindset.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is one of the issues that I have is, and once again, I'm going to do another shout out to Pastor Rick. I love what he said. He said, worship, and this is why the church used to be called Word and Worship, because he actually explained it. And he was like, because you have to get the word, you have to get the word of God, and you should enter into worship. And he said, and worship is entering into the presence of God and having an experience with God. Now, what I love about that is he actually finished that statement. He said, if you have a true encounter and experience with God, you're not the same way going out as you came in. One of the problems that I have, and I'm just going to say in different denominations of church, it becomes an emotional experience instead of it being an actual authentic experience with God. Because if you have an authentic experience with God, you're not the same. I had a discussion with somebody before about that. I was like, it's just like Moses with the burning bush. They seen the glow of God on his face.
I'm preaching that.
I'm sorry, but I'm just saying, like there was an outward manifestation of the experience of God that they entered. You know what I mean? And if I'm offending somebody, you might want to check yourself, because you might want to ask yourself this question: are you having an authentic experience with God? I actually am at my church now. Now I'm not trying to call anybody out. But I'm going to say years ago, and I remember having this conversation with my pastor. And my pastor, man, that's my man, 100 grand, love him. And we were talking about that. And, there was two people in the congregation that had a emotional experience, not an experience with God, not a true experience with God. And you said, well, how can I judge that? When we talked on the phone, they didn't even make it. He did the benediction. He didn't make it from the pulpit to his office, which is only 20 to 30 feet, before he received a call from them from the parking lot, cussing him out because they disagreed with something that he had said. Now this is the funny part about it. The same two ladies fell out in church, crying and wailing and everything like that. So let me ask you this. If you had that experience with God and God moved in your heart and you had the right heart and the right mindset, how could you do that? It doesn't happen.
And that goes right back to this idea of performative worship and performance versus authenticity. And and that's kind of that, we see it from the AV team, but we also see it from the congregations, from people that sometimes they get lost in trying to produce or create a moment rather than letting that just authentically play out.
Well, there's also instances where the worship team kind of coerces you a little bit more than what they should to come on.
I need you to come on. And not to get off the subject. And that kind of, I'm the type of person that I don't like being told what to do.
Say it again, brother.
And if you're sitting there and if I worship in my own way,
right,
and I'm in my mode of worship, I'm trying to get in my mode of worship, and you're constantly stand up. I need to get up on you, get them some praise. Come on, clap your hands. If I don't feel that, why are you constantly coercing me to try to do that? And I get the participatory aspect of worship, but invite them. but don't sit there
Well,
and
there's an
dwell
art
on
to
it
that.
over and over until they do
There's
it.
an art to worship leading, which I've learned, but there's also an extra layer that I want to put in there. Cameras. It seems like for certain churches, when the camera goes on, it's very extra. Or if you are trying to have an authentic moment, you got a camera in your face and you're crying and with the ugly face, and then you look up and you're like, oh,
There's a camera in your face,
there's a
right?
camera in your
And
face.
this actually segues to a really good point and I want to get your touch on. So, because you mentioned a little bit earlier about, the AV team is not just a team of people you just throw together that's going to support and do this job.
That's right.
It is supposed to be a ministry.
Oh, facts.
It is supposed to be people that are gifted and trained and called to that ministry.
Facts.
And if we're going to take it a step further, I feel, and this is me personally, if you're called and trained and that's your gifting, then part of your job as the AV ministry team is to be able to be the curators of that atmosphere.
That's right.
And
That's right.
with that, there is some type of spiritual authority that you guys should be able to have, that you can be able to discern and control that moment, whether it's the camera angles, whether it's the lighting, whether it's the sound, whether it's, some of the worship production aspects. To me, those are decisions and things that are done that should be, granted you got your pastoral approval, but those would be the things that the AV team has authority over, because you guys are the gifted, called ones to that ministry, and that's part of your ministry. If I'm, just a worship leader, or I'm just congregating, hey, music too loud. Hey, it's too dark. Hey, this sound is, turn that sound down. It's too loud for me. Hey, I don't like this setup. Hey, I'm not feeling, this today. That's really not, in my opinion, their place to try to give orders, because they're not the ones that are gifted and called to the ministry that handles that.
I would fully agree with you on that. So I'm going to give an example. Like, Jamin, you're a drummer. But that's not just what you do, but you are a drummer. I'm not a drummer. I was a horn player. I'm not going to tell you how to play drums. I'm not. Because that's not my speciality. That's not my forte. I can appreciate you. I can see what you do, and I can say, hey, man, good job or what have you, but I'm not going to tell you how to play the drums if I don't even have a background in that. And one of the things that I find, I'm just going to say, in just certain church environments, is this, and I'm going to call it what it is. It's cattiness. It's not being able to admit that somebody knows more than you, or that somebody is better than you at something. Now, the interesting thing about that is I'm going to use an example, and I'm going to use myself as an example, a conversation I had with a friend of mine. There's a good friend of mine. Well, I'm going to say it was a conversation that I had about another friend to a friend. A good friend of mine, he is like, honestly, he's the best sound engineer I ever met. I mean, honestly, the kid was signed to a label at the age of 14. I mean, he's I think, no, so don't let me lie to you. He was signed at 15 because his mother wouldn't allow him to be signed at 14. He's produced so many songs on, countless people's albums, when hip hop and gospel and different genres of music. Mm-hmm. Devout Christian brother. He's the head sound engineer at the Brooklyn Tabernacle Church. You can look him up. He is better than me. I can admit that. This dude eats, drinks, sleeps sound. That's what he does. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, yeah, man, he's better than me at blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, I'd never say that. I would never say anybody's better than me. I said, really? I said, bro, then you have no room to grow. Because if you can't admit that somebody is better than you, if your ego is so shallow and so weak, then you will never get beyond the point in which you're at. One of the things that I do, any event that I do, I record it. And I don't record it so I can put it out for everybody else. I record it so I can critique myself. And there's been times that I've done events and I said, oof, it wasn't horrible, but oh man, I fumbled the ball on that one. On the next time around, I got to do this better. And I'm going to use a quote. It's almost like old company I used to work for. Well, I'm not going to say what the company was, but what they used to say was their philosophy was in the pursuit of excellence. So you would always go and try to pursue being excellent. No matter what you do, you always critique yourself, you self-evaluate yourself to be better. And the thing is if you don't know how to do something, and that's why I actually made that comment to my friend. I was like, there's times that I've had to call my buddy up and say, hey, man, I'm working on XYZ. What would you suggest? Hey, man, go in there, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And he's very open with the knowledge because I don't know everything. And the thing is we have to be humble enough, especially as Christians, to say, I don't know. You just can't hear it from somebody else. It has to be your idea.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, it's not about you. It's about the house of God, and it's about doing things together in excellence. And the thing is, with the question that you asked me earlier, when you said the difference between the church and the world, the secular world, I can't even tell you how many countless events I've done, secular events. And the one thing about it is everybody knows the assignment. And everybody is working to make the production great. There's no egos involved. Very rarely do you get egos involved. It does happen sometimes. But when you're putting on a big production, everybody knows why you're there. And I'm going to even say something else too. So I'm just going to address this one. This goes out to the musicians. The arrogance in the church from the church musicians is ridiculous.
Talk about it.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I was on Facebook and some person made the comment of saying that the best musicians in the world are black church musicians. That is foolishness. That is bull. Let's just keep it real, because when you make that statement, you are literally dismissing every other group, every other race, every other musician around the world. You're saying that you're better than them. For what? All the Japanese musicians that are touring the world? You know what I mean? And this is the other thing too. You know, and not to come at anybody in particular, but to say this. Gospel music is one genre of music. You can be good at it, but guess what? That's like being a one-trick pony. And when you come in the door and you're asking for this outrageous amount of money, trying to gouge churches, oh, I want $500 a Sunday, $500 a service, and you're only playing for 30 minutes maximum. You're talking doctor and lawyer money. Somebody who went to school for 12 years. People with their doctorate degrees in music who are fluid in 6-7 different genres of music, and I'm talking about extremely good. They have mastered it. Don't ask for that kind of money.
That's a huge problem.
So why do we think that it is okay to come into a church, and most of these churches can't afford that, to gouge somebody? I had a buddy of mine say, oh, well, they can ask for that because they're so good. This dude can't even read music. If you put a piece of music in front of them, they can't even read it. Oh, they play by ear. Or this is the other part about it too. And so let's even talk about, once again, the world versus the church. If I do sound for a band, note what I said, a band that consistently plays together in the world, they all know the music. They all know the parts. They all know how they mesh. Anybody who has been classically trained, anybody who has played either in band, formal band, concert band, orchestra, even the singer who's singing in choir, in chorus, they all understand one thing. As cheesy as it may say, thank you, drumline, one band, one sound. You're there for one purpose, to make it all sound good, all together. It's not about you. When I started doing sound in churches and doing gospel events, and they would hire this musician and that musician and this musician, one of the worst events I ever did, I actually wanted to leave the event, being the sound person, because it was so bad. And it ended
That
up
makes a big difference.
It was.
It makes a
This is
huge
the thing.
difference.
As a sound person, I'm like, and this is what I'll say to anybody who's a sound engineer. You got the best seat in the house. You get to experience everything.
Mm-hmm.
I have been witness to concerts that, I mean, it's nothing but the grace of God to put me in that place. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. No, it's by the grace of God. God put me in that place. It could have been anybody in that place. It's not because I'm that good. It's because God graced me with that opportunity. Sitting at I was at a gospel event. All these quote unquote top notch artists or top notch musicians from the city came out to play. It was a train wreck. And it wasn't a train wreck because of anything I did. It was a train wreck because they didn't play together.
It's all probably trying to
They were trying to outdo each
outdo
other.
each other
It
and show
was,
off
I'm
what
going
they
to
can
turn my
do.
sound up louder than you. There was 2 guitar players. There was like, there was a horn section. There was everything. And everyone sat there trying to outdo the other. And it was a horrible, in fact, to the point of, and I thank God for this one particular singer. She is a seasoned saint. Um, is it okay if I call her out by name?
Sure.
Karen Arrington, I love you. She turned it around. She cut the band. She said, stop.
Mm.
She said, we're doing this for God. She said, if you're not going to play it right, don't play it at all. Stop. She's like, I'll sing a cappella if I have to. And she started singing, and I will tell you, she completely changed the atmosphere in the house. One of my best friends, Jermaine Siska, was there with me. And me and him were absolutely disgusted. And he turned to me, and he was like, bro, we're back. We're in there. And just that moment, she was able to change the atmosphere. Because once again, she knew what the assignment was. She knew why she was there. She's also a professional. And Ashley, Ashley started doing sound and she's doing video with me because her experience in the church was horrible. Horrible. So I said, I don't want you to think that doing live sound and doing cameras and things like that that's what it's about. So I invited her on some of my gigs, and she's done probably a dozen gigs with me at least. And the way that they treated her with the utmost respect, and she's like, Greg, I love this. She was like, oh my goodness, this is so much different. And I said, exactly. And just there's planning and they give you you have stage plots and time and you know what I mean to get everything done. And we're talking about not even where you can just walk in like most churches. You can just walk in and the sound system is there. I'm talking about she's doing things from the ground up with me. Well, we got to set up the whole rig. Well, we got to set the stage. Well, we got to put all the boxes out. Well, we got to sometimes use a generator. You know what I mean? You're doing everything from nothing. And we're packing up the truck the day before and getting everything ready. And she had a better experience doing that, doing something from nothing than from dealing with the people in the church. And I'm going to give a testimony for my son. And not just to boast and brag about my son, but I'm going to give a testimony. So my son, he's a bass player. And he actually had the opportunity, and I will boast on him a little bit. This dude has toured. He has done all that stuff. He's played on every major stage here. He's about one of the most humble cats that you would meet because he would never even tell you that. I'm telling you because I know he wouldn't. He actually said to a church, he agreed to play for a church, and I think it was like $50 or $75 or something like that to play like a 3-hour gig for them. Church didn't have a lot of money. He's like, I'm going to do this. Well, one of the bands that he tours with called him, and they said for the same day, said, hey, can you come out? Hey, we need you for this day. He's going out of town, guaranteed. Minimum payment, $500. Minimum. 50 to 500. He calls me. He tells me, he says, hey, Dad, I got a call from band such and such and such to do it. He said, but I already gave my word that I was going to play this church. I said, okay, so what are you going to do? He said, you know what, Dad? He said, I don't feel right. I could get a sub if I wanted to for the church, and I could go and get that gig for that extra money. He said, but I don't feel right doing that. He said, because you know what? He said, God gave me this gift. And he said, and I can't turn my back on God for the money. It just wouldn't be right. He said, so you know what? I got to honor God and honor my gift, honor the gift that God has given me. He said, you know what? I'm going to tell him I can't do it. I ain't gonna lie. I hung up with him. I was choked up. I was like, my man. I was like, that's what it's about. And I'm going to be real with you. My son, many years ago, he used to ask me, Dad, can you set me up with this musician, that musician? Because I'm doing sound for all of these guys. And I'm gonna give a shout out to somebody, man. Shout out to Sean Hobson that had In Motion. In Motion. Man, you had look, me running sound for you, that was some of the best times that I had. I mean, we did all the jazz concerts here. Jazz at South Beach. I mean, I got to work with all the big names working for Sean. You know what I mean? Love you, man. Love you. But anyway, um, those musicians that Sean hired, I had direct connections with them. And I'm not knocking any of them. Not knocking any of them. But I said I wanted my son, I wanted to make sure that he had the right attitude and the right culture. Because I didn't want to have this, and not to say that, I'm not even going to say that they were like this, because they really weren't. But there is a culture, if I can say this, in the church where there's egos. It's all about who you played with, who the last, you know what I mean? No, it doesn't matter. I don't care who you played with. I seen a friend of mine actually posted something like that. It was like, oh yeah, can you tell me who you played with and this and that, calling out other musicians. I'm like, bro, what does it matter who you played with? You know what I'm saying? That's irrelevant. The relevance is, do you study your music? Do you learn it? Like, what is your purpose for doing what you're doing? Is it so that you can be seen? Or is it so that you can be a part of something and make it better? A particular musician friend of mine, he called me, and he's actually, I would say he's probably not only one of my closest friends, but he's actually like one of the best musicians I know. And one of the reasons why I say he's one of the best musicians I know is if you call him between a certain time of the day. If I was talking to him at like 2 o'clock, per se, he would get off the phone with me at about 3. He said, hey man, I gotta go, bro. Like, what's up, man? What you doing? Hey man, I gotta get down I gotta get downstairs and shed, bro. I got a gig coming up. I was like, man, when's your gig? He'd be like, it'd be a month out. And every day he'd be practicing that music for that event. That's how diligent he was. That's how determined he was to make sure that he knew his part. So he had the opportunity to go play for some big musical hours away. He drove. I mean, he's a driver like that. I'm not gonna drive 4 or 5 hours away. That's just me. And he was doing it daily while this musical was going on. So to speak to his ability, he was uh he can read music. Um he's classically trained. You know what I mean? Great ear for music. He went out there, he called me on the way back, and he said, man, and I'll never forget this, no arrogance in it. And this is why I love this dude. He said, that music is kicking my tail. There were people that came from all over different states and whatever to try out for that. He got the spot. He was number one. And he even said this, it's kicking my butt.
And I think that's one of the big things with musicians nowadays, especially church musicians, is that they can never be real and honest about the difficulties of music and set lists and song lists. It's like, yo, this ain't, you can't just, yeah, I got that, man, no problem, I'm good. And a lot of times, for them, they have this mindset that if they admit that something's difficult or they admit that something's hard, then because of their ego, they just assume that they're going to get someone else to do it because it's too hard for you, then they could do it. And we just got to get out of that mindset. Like, look, you don't know everything. You're not going to be able to, everything ain't going to come easy to you.
That's
You're
right.
not going to just automatically pick up everything. You can have an ear for music and can be able to listen to something and get it, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be difficult. And it goes back to that whole concept of production. and worship production. And one of the things that is kind of interesting that we were discussing about is sometimes the church fails to acknowledge the importance of the planning and the organization of a worship experience.
Hmm.
Like, and you mentioned it, like, the setup, the staging, the set list, you might run through things. We don't do that for church services. And it's like, where is that balance between looking at church as, yes, you're going, let the spirit flow, but where is it that purpose of doing our part to strive for excellence from the AV standpoint, from the worship production standpoint? What are we doing so that we can mitigate some of those errors? Because it's one thing you get in, things happen, the spirit flows, you're off track. It's another thing when you got simple, basic mistakes like the wrong lyrics or the wrong camera angles or batteries dead on mics and things like this that could have been avoided if we took the time to have these productions. And so, to shift gears just a little bit, and because we want to start to give some nuggets for those pastors, ministers, church leaders that are out there. So I want to pose the question: what are some things that pastors, leaders, or ministers don't realize that they're doing or not doing that affects the worship production of a service?
Number one is that last minute of like getting your sermon and so forth to the production team for like to be put into Pro Presenter, or if you're using Pro Presenter, or if you're using Media Shout or Easy Worship or whatever you're using, um, not waiting to the last minute. I mean, one of the churches I used to belong to, everybody had their stuff by Thursday. In fact, not even just Thursday, it was their Thursday morning because we did a complete run through on Thursday night, a complete run through for Saturday, or for Sunday. So it
I
was
have seen churches that do
oh yeah,
dry
man,
runs
it
before
was
services.
yeah, exactly. And the thing is even on Sunday there will be another run through.
Hmm.
So you had a full run through. So it was band rehearsal, worship rehearsal would happen on Tuesday,
Hmm.
and then they would do a full run through. I mean, they would say, "Okay, Pat, the minister's going to come up." Da, 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 da. He didn't actually go through the whole sermon, no, but they would say, "Okay, this is the way this is going to go, flow this way." Da 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 da, and then it would be an additional rehearsal for the worship team. They would actually go through everything, and the production team had to show up, and everybody had to run through. So if you're running sound, you had to do sound. Pro presenter had to do pro presenter. There was cameras; they had to run the cameras. All of that stuff had to go so that you knew where everything was going to happen. And then come Sunday, they would do a quick run through, so then you know that everything is good. So the songs were in there by Thursday, and they use planning center. So I'm actually my church now. I'm trying to get them to go in the planning center, and within planning center, everybody had access to it. So not only did it have the songs, it had the keys, it had links to where you could listen to the song, had all the lyrics. So the lyrics and all that stuff went to the production team, so that it would be in Pro Presenter. The sermon was there, so they would upload it in the Pro Presenter. All the slides were pre-done. And actually, all the slides, stuff like that, believe it or not, they actually used to have the secretary do the slides because she was very good at it. So each person had their thing that they would do that they were excellent at. And the other part of it too was they had production meetings. So each group, that church had 5 campuses, and they would literally have group meetings within that campus, and they would have campus meetings between the campuses. And they would say, okay, they would have little breakout sessions, and they would say, okay, all of you guys that run cameras, you guys all meet and have a conversation and talk about this and what can we do to make it better.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you
Yeah,
find this a cultural issue
it is very much so.
because of why? Why do you feel like? Because I can
I,
say for me, I feel like it's a generational thing, and
I
we're
think
so used to tradition that this is new.
I think it's both. I think it's generational, and I think that Um, one of the things that really bother me is when we start putting race into things,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no race when it comes to like in the kingdom of God. There's not going to be in heaven. There's not going to be a black section, a white section, a Chinese section.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be heaven. You know what I'm saying? And one thing that I noticed in the black church is we start really talking about, well, white churches do that. Well, they have an order and a structure. And then we sit back and we say, oh no, you got to let the spirit move. Yeah, you can let the spirit move, but guess what? You need to still have structure. I will still be a structure. And the thing is like, there's nothing wrong with there's things that the world does better than the church. Let's just call it what it is. Like, you know what I mean? There are criteria that you have to follow,
Mm-hmm.
and there are guidelines and there are rules. There's you can have grace, but there still needs to be guidelines. And there also needs to be, like, you know what I mean? And just like you said, there is a age difference, a demographic.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the older seasoned saints, they're very resistant to so many things. I mean, let's keep it real. Until my church now, until they got rid of the pews, man, they didn't want to get them pews up for nothing. And them things were busted.
Yeah, I think.
They were literally falling apart. You would sit down in the pew, man, and you had to you were pleading the blood of Jesus that you weren't going to end up on the floor.
Yeah.
They were that bad. But tradition says you have to have pews. You know what I'm saying? To the point where the church wasn't even usable for weddings because they had a pew, the center pew, halfway back through the sanctuary. The center pew went all the way across. There was no aisle for the bride to walk down.
And I feel like aesthetics makes a huge difference in your worship, how you can kind of how your body is, because sometimes you can go into a sanctuary and it is just overloaded with banners and signs and pictures. And, I feel like it is important to really think about your aesthetics whenever it comes to your church, because it's what are you putting out there? What are you saying without saying? And I think a lot of times we're so stuck in a certain space of, okay, we have to only get them through the scripture or through a sermon or through this, but there's other ways that you can invite people in without being so upfront, and allow people to come in and feel a little bit relaxed. With the lighting, with a clean space that's not overloaded, and I find that there's a huge difference between the older churches and some of the new modern churches on aesthetics.
Yeah, well, there definitely is. And the thing is, too, they got to remember, I mean, churches in general and pastors, I'm just saying this to every pastor out there, you got to understand, too, that you can't just cater to the senior saints.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we don't live forever. And it's like, Pastor Hood, good friend of mine, Pastor Hood, he used to say this. He said, if you don't see youth coming into that door, if you don't see children and youth, he said, your church is a dead man walking. You just don't know it yet.
That's good.
And just to say this just real quick, because I don't want to cut you off, Jamin, and you were talking about the aesthetics. So saying about, because I'm going to say this, I've installed in many houses of worship. And I'm not talking just Pittsburgh. I mean, I'm talking in Cleveland and in Columbus, Ohio, and other parts of the state. I've been there. And in one particular church I'm thinking of, when you said that aesthetics, I said, man, I went down in their basement, man. I felt like I was walking into the Underground Railroad. That's how dated it was. I was looking for Harriet Tubman to come out the back.
I told Jamie in the one church we went to, I felt like I was going to my grandmother's house.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like this is the thing. It's like, but they're like, well, that's good enough, or that was good enough for such and such and such. Well, guess what? You know what I mean? I mean, look, I'll tell it. I'm in my 50s, and I was like, when I'm in my 50s, and I'm like, man, that's dated.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine somebody in their 20s. They'd be like, man, I don't want no part of this, because if you can't even upkeep your church to make it at least but we'll just call it relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to say that you need to have like laser lights and the rest of that stuff. I'm talking about something as simple as drywall. Get rid of the paneling. Paint that mofo. You know what I'm saying? Get rid of the deep scarlet red where it looked like somebody got shot. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Everything is
carpet.
But all that matters. And so
Yeah.
like it's so from your perspective in the AV department,
I'm sorry.
how do you navigate that balance between catering to all of those generations? Because you're going to have those generations that don't like the lighting, that don't like the sound. You're going to that the generation that you need to get in likes those lights, likes those sounds. Obviously from aesthetics and stuff like that, but specifically from the AV department, how do you kind of navigate that balance of producing, that environment and the worship experience in a way that kind of encapsulates all of those generations?
Okay, so that's funny. That's a great question. So I'm gonna just say this. It's really funny because just because you have the ability for the sound system to become loud doesn't mean that you have to play it loud. So I'm gonna tell anybody and everybody out there this. Don't undercut yourself when it comes to your sound system. Don't do the bare minimum, because the bare minimum is exactly that. I've been in places where they have put in the least that they can put in, and to get even a decent volume, they have their system maxed out. So then as soon as you actually fill the sanctuary, oh, well, we only got 30 people here, 40 people here. Well, you have a conference or something, and now you got 200 people there, 300, 400 people there, or more. And you don't have enough sound to cover the space. You're so worried, oh, I don't want to offend, then turn it down. It's better to have the headroom than not to have the headroom. And I always find it funny because I appreciate what you're saying. A lot of the saints, oh, I don't like the subs and I don't like all of that bass and all this and that. Most of y'all were out there in the clubs. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it 100. Y'all weren't saved your whole life. When you were kids, you was listening. When you were a kid, you was listening to that music. And it was funny because a particular church I'm thinking of, we had put up the second set of speakers, the fillers, the delays, as they would say. We put up the delays, and there was no wires connected to them. We hadn't connected them up yet. They were literally just mounted up on the walls. And one of the senior saints was like, the pastor said, hey, well, how'd you like it? Because we had upgraded the board. We had upgraded the amps. You know what I mean? We had put some other things in. And she said, he said, well, how do you like everything? She was like, well, I liked everything except for that speaker right there, and pointed to the one that wasn't plugged in. She said, it was blaring in my ear the whole service. He said, mother, that one right there? She says, yes, that one. He said, mother, that's not even connected. They just put it up on the wall. So she was complaining about something. She was trying to find something to complain about. Now, along with that, I'm going to tell you a funny story. Now, this is kind of funny. Now, give me a moment.